As surprising as the decisiveness of the national elections may be, here's some further demonstration that it is, in fact, quickly approaching absolute zero in hell. It's not just making America great again. Even California is making crime illegal again, or at least California voters are. California politicians, of course, remain as defiant against the basic law enforcement functions of the state as ever, which makes you wonder why California voters are simultaneously voting for these new laws and the same old politicians who oppose them and wouldn't enact them on their own. But that's a question for another time. What matters now is that's enough smashes, and that's quite enough grabs. So get your 100% off Jordans while you still can, kids, because justice for Foot Locker is coming very soon. This year's ballot measure was Proposition 36, easily passing by a 70-30 margin, though only just over half of the votes are in, but it has already been declared victorious. Prop 36 was branded as a measure to fix Prop 47, the now decade-old California law voters passed in 2014 to reduce penalties for lower-level crimes. Prop 47 famously reclassified shoplifting and other theft, forgery, and fraud under $950 in value, as well as possession of drugs in personal use quantities, as misdemeanors. Now, in fairness, as much attention as that $950 number got, it's actually not outside of the norm nationally. The threshold for felony theft across the country ranges from a low of $200 in New Jersey to a high of $2,500 in Texas and Wisconsin. But of course, what the law says and how it's enforced are two separate questions. So a combination of loosening the law and prosecutors and judges who are looking for criminal justice reform instead of just criminal justice has created a lack of it in California. More criminals and less justice. Prop 47 was originally sold as the opposite, a way to alleviate and reduce crime with endorsements that have aged about as well as an Ann Seltzer poll in Iowa. The San Jose Mercury News editorial board wrote in 2014 that Prop 47 would break the cycle of crime. Being nicer to criminals with more lenient sentencing and an emphasis on rehab and treatment would surely reduce California's recidivism rate. The San Francisco Chronicle likewise made an argument about financial efficiency. California simply can't afford to keep sending people to prison for these crimes. Of course, you can't really afford not to either, though, because if the criminals keep stealing from productive people and businesses, those people just leave and the revenue stream to the state dries up. Coincidentally, that Mercury News piece ripped then California Attorney General Kamala Harris for not taking a bold public stance in support of Prop 47, despite her philosophical agreement with the ballot measure and her role in titling the measure the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act. They called her gutless for staying publicly neutral. And a decade later, she did the same thing with the effort to fix it. Just this week, Kamala Harris was asked how she voted on Prop 36 to undo Prop 47, and again, she dodged and weaved.
Have you returned the ballot to California, and how did you vote on Prop 36?
My ballot is on its way to California, and I'm going to trust the system that it will arrive there. And I am not going to talk about the vote on that because, honestly, it's the Sunday before the election, and I don't intend to create an endorsement one way or another around it.
Hey, don't look to me for political leadership. I'm just the humble candidate for the highest political office in the country. How shocking that vote for the mystery box wasn't a compelling campaign message, though I guess in fairness, Willie Brown's curiosity about the mystery box is exactly how she got here in the first place. Regardless, the political sale was not the problem. The political reality was because despite the promises and predictions, the decade with Prop 47 produced none of what was advertised. The recidivism rate did not drop. It stayed stable. Repeat criminals remained repeat criminals, and status quo is as good as it got. The other problems worsened. Drug overdose deaths in San Francisco have surged to a record high of 810 in 2023. 2024 is on pace for about the same. Likewise in LA, where drug overdoses have surged 300% in the last decade, driven primarily by fentanyl and meth. This despite corresponding budget increases, 260% more public funding, 275% more treatment services, 500% more harm reduction programs. But with 0% more law enforcement and criminal justice, the deaths have climbed right alongside the money on an almost even dollar-for-life scale. Meanwhile, shoplifting has also increased, driven by the state's 15 most populous counties. The Bay Area, Sacramento, and LA have all seen retail theft climb 40% or more over the last decade. These three metro areas lead the country in annual retail losses to theft, some $8 billion in 2021. Hence the crackdown and the overwhelming passage of Prop 36, even among overwhelmingly Democratic voters. But the thing about the new law is it's not even that harsh. It's not like these hoodlums are going to get stuffed into the Foot Lockers now, though they probably should. They're still going to get plenty of chances. The new law targets repeat offenders. It makes thefts and drug possession felonies if the offender has prior convictions. So if you mess up and you make an honest mistake once, it is not straight to prison. And for drug possession, even for repeat offenders, it is still not straight to prison. Drug offenders will have their drug convictions erased if they complete rehab. Despite that completely fair treatment, Governor Gavin Newsom opposed Prop 36 all the way through Election Day, saying it will lead to 1980s-style mass incarceration. It promotes a promise that cannot be delivered, he said, which I guess is somewhat credible. He is an expert in undelivered promises, after all, but to the point, if you can't stop stealing, you should go to prison. Mass crime must be met with mass justice. There is no softened approach to hardened criminals. Newsom made his opposition pitch on the basis of cost efficiency and fiscal responsibility. Very odd that criminal justice is the one thing that California can't afford, apparently. Because again, if you want a harsh lesson in economic reality, make your state unlivable for productive people, and you will realize a financial emergency very quickly. Of course, the discretion of prosecutors and judges will still play a major role in criminal justice in California, but voters are making changes there too. Also, in Tuesday's election, voters in Los Angeles fired their district attorney George Gascon in favor of a former federal prosecutor and Republican state attorney general candidate Nathan Hochman, who rebranded as an independent and focused on the basic, formerly nonpartisan idea of, hey, maybe we should remove criminals from society. George Gascon has been in office in LA since 2020, elected on George Floyd fever for criminal justice reform, and ironically, George Floyd fever is exactly what he brought to the city and the county. More theft and drug overdoses, just the way George lived. It's just people are tired of crying about it now, even if they aren't quite ready for the full knee of justice yet. A little more of this nonsense, and they soon will be. George Gascon is crying about it, though. He and his political allies insist that LA is actually very safe, that perception is only distorted by viral videos of smash-and-grab retail robberies. And it looks like that basically was his opponent's campaign strategy. Hey, have you seen all those crazy videos on the internet? People sure are stealing a lot of stuff and punching a lot of faces. Maybe we should stop them.
Enough is enough. Enough
is enough.
They're right.
Enough is enough.
And no matter how many numbers or bar charts you show people that crime is up or crime is down, the reality is that scenes like those happening at all, with a DA's response of lenience and rehabilitation instead of justice for those attacked, is always going to be politically unpopular. Once, twice, or a million times, injustice is not politically persuasive. And the problem for George Gascon is he can't even claim he's just following the law as it constrains him. Oh, sure, California law has some problems, but hey, I didn't write it. I just enforce it. Oh no, he wrote it too. Or at least he helped. He's been in California politics and law enforcement for a very long time. And he was one of the authors of Prop 47, actually, the ballot measure that has required all of this criminal lenience. And recall, this shift in LA follows a shift in San Francisco, too. 2 years ago, DA Chesa Boudin was ousted in San Francisco for the same reasons. crime and drug problems gone rampant, and a DA's office content to enable the insanity. Boudin said recently in a Politico interview that San Francisco has taken a hard turn to the right since removing him, as though he left any room to the left anyhow. But if you've drifted entirely into the oncoming lane, a hard turn to the right is prudent, actually. But just to emphasize how delusional the man has become, his evidence for San Francisco's supposed rightward movement is the decades-established left-wing politicians who have been there the whole time. Oh, look at all the centrists coming out of San Francisco, he says. Like Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi, and Dianne Feinstein. Yes, San Francisco's rightward trend is driven by the single most liberal senator by voting record. San Francisco is not nearly as progressive as its reputation suggests, Boudin says. With that perspective, where he would have taken the city given the full chance, God only knows, or maybe not. God hasn't had a close relationship with San Francisco for quite some time now. Gay sex at gunpoint, I assume, would be the standard by now, just, with only 10-round mags and no assault attachments. For the guns. For the guys, of course, the assault attachments are a necessary part of the parade. Make America not that again is really the unifying idea here, bringing otherwise progressive California Democrat voters into some semblance of alignment with even the reddest states in the country, to be smeared and discredited as extreme by the most extreme degenerates this side of hell itself. For those still captured by the delusion, if you actually think that San Francisco looks a lot more like Oklahoma than people realize, maybe it's just that you are so far out there that you'd need a telescope to have any decent view of reality. If they're united only in their opposition to you, maybe you have something to do with the problem. Maybe you are the problem. So, will California actually reverse course and heal itself? At this point, they may be applying Band-Aids to a severed head, but hey, that is closer to the right idea, so maybe it's worth a shot. Because after all, this is a choice between Band-Aids and actual AIDS. So, I'll take the Ninja Turtle ones, please. That's my preferred 80s nostalgia. I'll take Star Wars if you don't have those. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on X, that is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to coming out and chat in my live streams. Those are live on Wednesday and Sunday nights. Looking forward to it. Goodbye.